Ed Gein, also known as the Butcher of Plainfield, was a notorious criminal in American history who used parts of his victims' bodies to create various trophies. On November 17, 1957, the police entered the house of a man named Gein, who was being investigated for the death of Berenice Worden, the owner of the Plainfield hardware store in Wisconsin. She had disappeared, and when they entered, they were terrified by what they found. A body hanging by the ankles, torso open, and viscera removed. But that wasn't the only thing discovered. There were many corpses along with strange objects seemingly made from human skin. 10 skulls with the tops removed were found, used as bowls and ashtrays, lampshades, and seats made of human skin. Soup plates made from skulls were among the items. Some skulls were on the bedposts, a belt made of human nipples, and more. There were too many objects made from human body parts, and the most characteristic were masks created with faces. In the refrigerator were the organs of Berenice Worden, and her head was placed on the table. On that day, the town of Plainfield was terrorized, and no one could believe all that this man had done to so many people. He was born in August 1906 in La Crosse County, Wisconsin, with an abusive and alcoholic father and a strict, religiously fanatic mother. They moved to a farm in Plainfield, where he developed a love-hate relationship with his mother Augusta. Gein's mother was a fervent religious believer who thought women were created by the devil to tempt men. She forced her sons to read the Bible daily, especially the Old Testament. She only had relations with her husband for procreation, didn't believe in friendship, and punished her children if she saw them playing with others. The Gein family worked in farming and pig breeding, and Edwin dropped out of school to work on the farm. After his father died in 1940, he and his brother had to find jobs. Ed did odd jobs and looked after neighbors' children. It was said he got along better with children than adults, though everyone trusted him. It is said that his first victim was probably his brother, as he constantly spoke ill of his mother and her religious beliefs. As Edwin grew up and formed his perspective of the world, he made his discomfort known, always mentioning that it seemed like his brother was in love with their mother. On May 16, 1944, a fire broke out in the Gein family fields, spreading to the house. After firefighters extinguished the fire, they searched for Henry, who had disappeared. Later, they found his body, showing signs of having been beaten, and the cause of death was confirmed asphyxiation. After his brother's death, Edwin's relationship with Augusta became incestuous. Only a few months later, Augusta suffered a stroke that left her paralyzed, and in 1945, she died. At that moment, Edwin lost his sanity. It was such a devastating blow to his emotions that he focused on his fantasies. On December 8, 1954, years later, the disappearance of Mary Hogan occurred. The victim had overcome 2 divorces and arrived in the small town of Plainfield from Dallas. She ran a bar in the small town, with an aggressive personality, insulting everyone every 2 words. Everything indicates that around 4 p.m. on December 8, the bartender closed the bar but let Ed in to have coffee. He had started frequenting the bar, and the young man shot her with a .32 caliber revolver. It was evident that a body had been dragged from behind the bar to the parking lot, where the tire marks of a car were visible on the snow. Inside the bar was a cup with a bloodstain and part of a fingerprint. The disappearance of Mary Hogan began to be investigated by an inexperienced sheriff, who had only seen corpses during World War II. He knew little about the investigation and perhaps never thought he would come across such a case. He practically made no progress in the case, but rumors in the town were diverse, including the version that the mafia had kidnapped Mary Hogan. Still, he joked and told them, "She hasn't disappeared. She's on my farm," amidst smiles and laughter. The last victim was the owner of a hardware store, Berenice Worden. On the night of November 15, 1957, Edwin, a regular customer, entered the store and asked for a gallon of antifreeze. He agreed to return the next morning to pick it up. The next day marked the start of deer hunting season, and tradition dictated that all men parade into the woods and return in the evening with their trophies displayed at the entrance of their estates after developing and gutting them. That day, rumors began in the town that it was odd for Berenice not to open the hardware store. When her son returned from hunting, he immediately notified the police that his mother had disappeared. However, as the police investigated, they noticed Edwin's name on the last sales invoice. All roads led to the Gein farm. When the police arrived at Edwin's house, they were surprised and shocked by what they described as the House of Terror. What surprised them the most was that Edwin let them enter his house as if nothing had happened. He offered no resistance, and he hadn't even hidden Berenice's body. He had hung it by the legs in a shed in Plainfield, with hooks in the ears, suggesting he planned to use it to decorate the roof of his house like the deer he had gutted. In the darkness, as the farm had no light, the police discovered the terrifying scene of this house and belongings. There was a large pit of garbage, human fragments of all kinds, and, surprisingly, objects made from human parts. Specifically, in the basement, a gloomy place, the agents found masks made of human skin and a suit similarly made from a woman's skin. Some bowls were made from skulls, and numerous works were made from skin, such as leotards, a wastebasket, and several upholstered chairs. There was even a lamp made from human faces and a window cord made from lips. There was a corset consisting of a skin torso and a belt with nipples in a bag, Mary Hogan's face, and her head in a box. When the police reached the upstairs room, the door was closed. The officers expected the worst. However, its interior was intact. It was the place where he had taken care of his mother. Despite the humidity, everything was impeccable. The bed was made, and on the bedside table, there was a Bible that he considered his sanctuary. When they took him away, he remained silent for 30 hours. Only when they told him they were going to put him in front of Berenice's body did he open his mouth, request an apple pie with cheddar cheese, and confess. He had understood that he couldn't escape the situation and knew the end had come, marking the conclusion of one of the most terrifying stories. But how and where did he obtain so many bodies for his macabre creations? In addition to the crimes of Mary Hogan and Berenice Wordens, Ed confessed that since his mother's death, he made frequent visits to the Plainfield cemetery. He used to read obituaries to know when and where they would bury women, and that same night, he would desecrate the graves. In some cases, he stole entire bodies, while in others, he took only certain parts. It might be thought that he had relations with the bodies, given his twisted and perverse mind. However, he denied having had relations with the corpses. When questioned, he admitted to opening the graves of recently deceased women, stealing their bodies, and taking them in a 1949 truck to his house, where he tanned the skins to make various objects. He also admitted to murdering Mary Hogan, a waitress missing since 1954. Cannibalism was never proven or admitted, and he denied raping the dead women, claiming they smelled too bad. It is believed that his mother Augusta made great efforts to prevent any external influence on her two sons, partly causing his mental disorder. Augusta was the last family member close to Ed, and she died in 1945. She sealed his room for some reason, leading Ed to become a monster. He never ate human flesh. The only thing he mentioned when questioned about this practice was that it smelled bad. It is not clear what his motive was. He explained to the police that, after his mother's death, he stayed in contact with her for over a year, speaking to her as he fell asleep. He mentioned that gradually he developed a fascination with anatomy, being captivated by reports on sex change operations, and at some point, he considered becoming a woman. There were instances when he used masks made of skin and even posed female genitals on his own. He underwent evaluation for a month. On January 6, 1958, a hearing took place where experts reported their diagnosis. It was mentioned in the diagnosis that he was schizophrenic and prone to hallucinations. He had told psychologists that he considered himself an instrument of God to resurrect the dead. The judge declared him incompetent and sent him to the state psychiatric hospital. On March 30th, it all came to an end. On that Sunday, the Gein farm and the furniture that had not been incinerated by the police were to be auctioned off. However, the town woke up to a thick column of black smoke. Someone had set fire to the house. What remained from the fire was turned into a business, taking it on tour to various cities and charging admission to see its interior decorated with fake blood. When Edwin learned of the fire, he remained unmoved. He told the nurse who conveyed the news that it was better this way. Hospital staff remember that he behaved well, reading the newspaper and rarely engaging in conversation. He continued like this until 1968, when a medical board notified the court that he was ready to stand trial. It took 9 days of hearings until he was found guilty of murdering Berenice Worden. He was once again placed in a psychiatric hospital, declared mentally ill, and spent the rest of his days in a psychiatric institution. He died in the summer of 1984 at the age of 77 due to respiratory failure, and his body was buried alongside that of his mother. What are your thoughts on this story? What role do you believe mental health played in Ed Gein's crimes? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to follow for more crime stories.